We're glad to have you with us for the challenge, and we're on day 12. We're so excited to be moving through this, and I hope that you are growing and learning, and that God is speaking to you through this opportunity. And today I have a special treat, or at least I think it's a special treat. When I was at Vanderbilt doing my master's, they let me choose my thesis topic, and they let me choose fairy tales for a master's in religion. So I had a lot of fun looking at fairy tales and talking about those. And I discovered this book, and it's The Politically Correct Bedtime Stories Modern Tales of Our Life and Times by James Van Garner. And it's a really, there's a lot of humor, a lot of PC lingo in here. And I thought it would be fun to look at Snow White from a different point of view. So bear with me. This can be a little lengthy, and it's not really got pictures. So let's enjoy Snow White. Once there was a young princess who was not at all unpleasant to look at, and had a temperament that many found to be more pleasant than most other people's. Her nickname was Snow White, indicative of the discriminatory notions of associating pleasant or attractive qualities with light and unpleasant or unattractive qualities with darkness. Thus, at an early age, Snow White was an unwitting, if fortunate, target for this type of colorist thinking. Got to switch my glasses, sorry. When Snow White was quite young, her mother was suddenly stricken ill, grew more advanced in non-health, and finally was rendered non-viable. Her father, the king, grieved for what can be considered a healthy period of time, then asked another woman, Wommon, to be his queen. Snow White did her best to please her new mother of step, but a cold distance remained between them. The queen's prized possession was a magic mirror that would answer truthfully any question she asked it. Now, years of social conditioning in a male hierarchical dictatorship had left the queen very insecure about her own self worth. Physical beauty was the one standard she cared about now, and she defined herself solely in regard to her personal appearance. So every morning the queen would ask her mirror, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the fairest of them all?" Her mirror would answer, "For all it's worth, O my queen, your beauty is the fairest to be seen." That dialogue went on regularly until once, when the queen was having a bad hair day and was desperately in need of support, she asked the usual question, and the mirror answered, "Alas, if worth be based on beauty, Snow White has surpassed you, cutie." At this, the queen flew into a rage. The chance to work with Snow White to form a strong bond of sisterhood had long passed. Instead, the queen indulged in an adopted masculine power trip and ordered the royal woods person to take Snow White into the forest and kill her. And possibly to impress the males in the royal court, she barbarously ordered that the girl's heart be cut out and brought back to her. The woods person sadly agreed to these orders and led the girl, who was now actually a young woman, Wommon, into the middle of the forest. But his connections to the earth and seasons had made him a kind soul, and he couldn't bear to harm the girl. He told Snow White of the oppressive and unsisterly order of the queen, and told her to run as deeply as she could into the forest. The frightened Snow White did as she was told. The woods person, fearing the queen's wrath, but unwilling to take another life merely to indulge her vanity, went into town and had the candy maker concoct a heart of red marzipan. When he presented this to the queen, she hungrily devoured the heart in a sickening display of pseudo-cannibalism. Meanwhile, Snow White ran deep into the woods. Just when she thought she had fled as far as she could from civilization and its unhealthy influences, she stumbled upon a cottage. Inside, she saw 7 tiny beds, set in a row and all unmade. She also saw 7 sets of dishes piled high in the sink and 7 Barca loungers in front of 7 remote-controlled TVs. She surmised that the cottage belonged to either 7 little men or one sloppy numerologist. The beds looked so inviting that the tired youngster curled up on one and immediately fell asleep. When she awoke several hours later, she saw the faces of 7 bearded, vertically challenged men surrounding the bed. She sat up with a start and gasped. One of the men said, "You see that? just like a flighty woman, resting peacefully one minute, up and screaming the next. I agree, said another. She'll disrupt our strong bond of brotherhood and create competition among us for her affections. I say we throw her in the river in a sack full of rocks. I agree we should get rid of her, said a third. But why degrade the ecology? Let's just feed her to a bear or something and let her become part of the food chain. Hear, hear. Sound thinking, brother. When Snow White finally regained her senses, she begged, Please, please don't kill me. I meant no harm by sleeping on your bed. I thought no one would ever notice. Ah, you see, said one of the men, female preoccupations are already surfacing. She's complaining that we don't make our beds. Kill her! Kill her! Please, no, she cried. I have traveled so deep into these woods because my mother of step, the queen, ordered me killed. See that? Internecine female vindictiveness. Don't try and play the victim with us, kid. Quiet, boomed one of the men, who had flaming red hair and a non-human animal skin on his head. Snow White quickly realized that he was their leader and that her fate rested in his hands. Explain yourself. What's your name and why have you really come here? My name is Snow White, she began, and I've already told you my mother of step, the queen, ordered a woods person to take me in the forest and kill me, but he took pity and told me to run away into the woods as far as I could. Just like a woman, grumbled one of the men under his breath. Get a man to do her dirty work. The leader held up his hands for silence. He said, Well, Snow White, if that's your story, I guess we'll have to believe you. Snow White was beginning to resent her treatment, but tried not to let it show. And who are you guys anyway? We are known as the 7 Towering Giants, said the leader. Snow White's suppression of a giggle did not go unnoticed. The leader continued, We are towering in spirit, and so are giants among the men of the forest. We used to earn our living by digging in the mines, but we decided that such rape of a planet was immoral and short-sighted. Besides, the bomb fell out of the metals market. So now we are dedicated stewards of the earth and live here in harmony with nature. To make ends meet, we also conduct retreats for men who need to get in touch with their primitive masculine identities. So what does that involve? Asked Snow White, aside from drinking milk straight from the carton. Your sarcasm is ill-advised, warned the leader of the 7 Towering Giants. My fellow giants want to get rid of your corrupting feminine presence, and I might not be able to stop them, understand? My men, we must speak our hearts openly and honestly. Let us adjourn to the sweat lodge. The 7 little men scampered out the front door, whooping and stripping off their clothes. Snow White didn't know what to do while waiting. For fear of stepping on anything that might be scurrying about amid the debris on the floor, she stayed on the bed, although she did manage to make it without ever stepping off. Snow White heard drumming and shouts, and soon after the 7 Towering Giants came back into the cottage. They didn't smell as bad as she thought they would, and thankfully they all wore loincloths. Ah, look what she's done to my bed. I want her out of here. I want to change my vote. Calm down, brother, said the leader. Don't you see? This is just what we were talking about. Contrasts. We can better measure our progress as true men if there is a female around for comparison. The men grumbled among themselves about the wisdom of this decision, but Snow White had had enough. I resent being kept around like an object, just a yardstick for your egos. Fair enough, the leader said. You're free to make your way back through the woods. Give our regards to the queen. Well, I guess I can stay until I figure out a new plan, she said. Very well, said the leader. But we have a few ground rules. No dusting. No straightening up. And no rinsing out our underwear in the sink. And no peeking in the sweat lodge. And stay away from our drums. Meanwhile, back at the castle, The queen rejoiced at the thought that her rival in beauty had been eliminated. She puttered around her boudoir, reading Glamour and Elle, and indulged herself with 3 whole pieces of chocolate without purging. Later, she confidently strolled up to her magic mirror and asked her same sad question. Mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the fairest of them all? And the mirror replied, your weight is perfect for your shape and height, but for sheer oomph, you can't beat Snow White. At this news, the queen clenched her fists and screamed at the top of her lungs. For years, her insecurities had been eating away at her until now they turned her into someone who was morally out of the mainstream. With cunning and malice, she began to devise a plan to ensure the non-viability of her daughter of Step. A few days later, Snow White, to be sure she didn't touch or rearrange anything, was meditating on the floor of the middle of the cottage. Suddenly there was a knock on the door. Snow White opened the door to find a chronologically gifted woman with a basket in her hand. By the look of her clothes, she was apparently unfettered by the confines of regular employment. Help a woman of unreliable income, dearie, she said, and buy one of my apples. Snow White thought for a moment. In protest against agribusiness conglomerates, she had a personal rule against buying food from middle persons, but her heart went out to the economically marginalized woman, so she said yes. What Snow White didn't know was that this was really the queen in disguise, and that the apple had been chemically and genetically altered so that whoever bit it would sleep forever. When Snow White handed over the money for the apple, you would have expected the queen to be gleeful that her plan for revenge was working. Instead, as she looked at Snow White's fine complexion and slim, taut body, she felt alternating waves of envy and self-revulsion. Finally, she burst into tears. Why, whatever is the matter? Asked Snow White. You're so young and beautiful, sobbed the disguised queen, and I'm horrible to look at and getting worse. You shouldn't say that. After all, beauty comes from inside a person. I've been telling myself that for years, said the queen, and I still don't believe it. How do you stay in such perfect shape? Well, I meditate, work out in step aerobics 3 hours a day, and eat only half portions of anything placed in front of me. Would you like me to show you? Oh, yes, yes, please, said the queen. So they started out with 30 minutes of simple hatha yoga meditation, then worked on the step for another hour. As they relaxed afterward, Snow White cut her apple in half and gave a piece to the queen. Without thinking, the queen bit into it, and both of them fell into a deep sleep. Later that day, the 7 towering